Good morning and welcome to the Audit Committee of the State Bar. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. Mr. Ewert, can you call the roll, please?
Yes. Broughton,
Here.
Chen,
Here.
Knoll,
Here.
Shelby,
Present.
Tony. We have a quorum.
Excellent. I think we have a full complement of the Audit Committee this morning, so welcome to everyone. Next on the agenda is public comment. State Bar will attempt to call members of the public in the order that they appear in the attendee pool. For those participating via Zoom, you should have a function to virtually raise your hand. Again, it's the hand icon and it should appear at the bottom of your screen. If you wish to address the committee, simply click on that icon and State Bar staff will be able to recognize you. For those participating by phone, it is pressing *9. That is the virtual hand function via the telephone. And again, once we are alerted, State Bar staff will invite you to speak. And due to time restrictions, we cannot allow more than 3 minutes per speaker. Please note that the staff will have an on-screen countdown timer visible to all attendees and will alert you when you are down to 30 seconds. The on-screen timer will flash throughout the final 10 seconds of your remarks. Let's see. Do we have anyone who would like to speak in public comment?
Yes, we do. Michael Sternberg. Yes, we can hear you. You have 3 minutes.
Welcome, Mr. Sternberg.
Thank you, Audit Committee. Good morning. I'm back to continue to document my concerns about the bar's refusal to investigate misconduct. I just spoke at the Executive Committee, so I'm going to continue with the chronology from that hearing. So on July 7, 2019, the day my kids were due back in Las Vegas from visiting their mother in California over the summer, they were not returned. Instead, I got an email from Tristan Aishelman, bar number 278981, explicitly blackmailing me, telling me I would not see my kids again unless I agreed that California had jurisdiction in our child custody case. He also mentioned that he was aware of our agreements, our private agreements, mother and I. Based on that, I filed a complaint with the bar on July 24th, 2019, where I made several factual allegations that, if proven true, would be misconduct. I attached to that complaint that email from attorney Tristan Aishelman. I did not have any other evidence at the time ready to go because I had been ambushed by the abduction, and also because the Santa Clara County, California Superior Court to this day refuses to grant me access to my own court file. I filed 4 motions in the Superior Court with 4 different judges. I filed motions in the appellate court. Apparently, secret courts are allowed in California. So all I had attached to that complaint was that email. But again, I made allegations that, if proven true, would be misconduct. Rule 2401 of the State Bar Rules of Procedure states the purpose of an investigation is to determine whether there's reasonable cause to believe that an attorney of the State Bar has violated a provision of the State Bar Act or the rules of professional conduct, and if there is sufficient evidence to support the allegations of misconduct. Later on in the Rules of Procedure, it talks about discretion, and that's where I think the problem is. It is clear the culture in the bar is one that says that, well, our discretion is to basically just turn a blind eye on everything and refuse to investigate everything. That's our discretion. I know this from the multiple complaints that I filed. So this complaint was intaked by attorney Scott Karp for bar number 274682. One of the things that I mentioned in my complaint was the fact that the attorney Aishelman had mentioned in his email he had filed several motions in the Santa Clara County Superior Court, but that he had not served them on me. In closing,
30 seconds left.
In closing the complaint, Scott Karp made the absurd claim that failure to serve is not misconduct. So I'd like to point the bar to Rule 3.1, meritorious claims and contentions, Rule 3.2, delay of litigation, Rule 3.3, candor towards the tribunal, because he got several continuances by filing a false declaration saying he couldn't serve me, even though I was standing in court in Las Vegas next to mother's attorney. I will leave it there since I'm going to run out of time. I will see the board at the next meeting, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you again, Mr. Sternberg. Do we have any additional public speakers for public comment? I'm sorry.
There are no additional speakers at this time.
Okay, thank you. Next, we will move to the chair's report. Since the last time this committee was together, we had the opportunity on April the 28th to review the annual financial statement audit pursuant to Business and Professionals Code section 6145A, including the Legal Services Trust Fund report under section 62022. And this committee adopted the audit. I don't believe it is on our agenda for our meeting. And so I wanted to thank everyone for their work on that and the staff for their work on that. And that is it in terms of the chair's report. Next, we will move to minutes. Are there any members who have changes to minutes for March the 16th or April the 28th? Great. If there are no changes, then may I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Motion by Chen and a second by Mr. Broughton. Can you call the roll, please?
Sorry, Greg. Sorry.
Broughton.
As long as we move along.
Okay. Chen,
Aye.
Noel,
Aye.
Shelby,
Aye.
Tony.
Aye.
That is 5 yes, 0 no. The motion passes.
Thank you. Next, we have the consent calendar. I don't think there's anything on consent, though.
We do have one item on consent, the
Okay, my
first
apologies.
quarter.
Let me put my glasses on. We do. The quarterly report. Give me one moment, please. Thank you. So we have one item on the consent calendar, and that is the approval of the 2023 quarterly one board and management travel expense report. Do any members wish to pull this item? If not, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Noel, second by Tony. Call the roll, please.
Broughton,
Yes.
Chen,
Aye.
Noel,
Aye.
Shelby,
Aye.
Tony.
Aye.
That is 5 ayes, 0 no's. The motion passes.
Excellent, thank you. Next on our agenda is item 4, business. Let's see. And the first item is under business is A, correction of the 2002 quarterly board and management travel expense report. And our CFO is going to address us. Ms. Montoya Chico, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, committee members. How are you? This item is really quick. It's just a correction of our prior 2022 quarterly expense reports. We had erroneously not included some of the board lodging expenses. So this agenda item is really just correcting all of the quarterly reports and bringing it to the committee for approval again. And in your agenda, I don't have a presentation, but in the agenda item, I've highlighted in yellow the corrected transactions that were missed previously.
Yes, they are very clear. Thank you.
Good.
Any questions? Excellent. Can you present the resolution, please?
Doing right now.
Thank you.
Can you see the resolution?
Perfect. Be it
I wish
resolved.
to move the item.
And a second?
Second.
Moved by Tony, second by Chen. Call the roll, please.
Broughton,
Aye.
Chen,
Aye.
Noel,
Aye.
Shelby,
Aye.
Tony.
Aye.
That is 5 ayes, 0 noes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is under business is item B, discussion of the organizational audit focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is a discussion item. And this is being presented by Teresa Bruce and Mara Rosales.
Mara's going to follow Teresa.
Okay, perfect. Welcome, Teresa.
Good morning. So this is just to provide an update and status for where we are with attaining the DEI Gold Seal standard for the Leadership Seal.
Teresa, can you pull the mic closer to you?
Yes. So attachments were provided, and we will just go through each of the action items and then take any questions if you have any. Justice, can you go ahead and go to the next slide? So we wanted to include just the State Bar's internal DEI journey from 2018 to where we are now, and each of the action items that we took each year. Justice, can you go ahead and go on? Okay, so as you know, the DEI Leadership Seal action items 1 and 2 must be completed in order to attain one of the DEI seal statuses. So the first item is to create and maintain demographic data, and the second item is to create a strategic DEI plan. The items that are in green have been completed, but both of these action items are in progress. Any questions on these two?
No.
Okay, next. So the rest of the items, in addition to the first two, at least 7 items must be completed, but we will be completing all but 1 item. So the third item is to calculate staff turnover and promotions. We are working with a consultant to pull demographic data from our HR system and then create different metrics to measure turnover, engagement, retention. So that is still in progress. Compare State Bar attorney hire demographics to California attorney population. Again, a lot of the data analytics that need to be done is something that we are still currently working on. Create and share publicly a DEI statement. The DEI statement will be included within the DEI strategic plan. So once that's all completed, this will also be completed. Number 6 is conduct staff stay and exit interviews. We did include DEI questions for stay interviews, and we will begin those with the May interviews, which means that they were February hires because we conduct them 90 days after the hire. And then for exit interviews, we began asking DEI questions with April separation. So this is complete and ongoing. Next, Justin. Number 7, so we launched the employee engagement survey in April. We actually just closed it this past Monday, and we also included DEI questions there, and this is the first year that we've done that. So that's something that we'll be looking at. That's complete. Number 8, require annual employee implicit bias training. Previously, we required training every 2 years. And this year in March, we launched the requirement for annual training. And I will say that of the 174 employees required to complete this year, we now only have 18 that still need to complete. So that's done. And number 9, incorporate DEI work with performance, advancement, and compensation decisions, also in progress. But the one thing that we have completed is added an inclusion and belonging component to supervisor performance evaluations, and we did that last year in September 2022. And the last action item is not something that the State Bar will be pursuing at this time. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to make a comment. First, thank you for this update. I know that pursuing the DEI leadership seal is very important to us here at the State Bar, and we want to be the benchmark for others to really move towards. I do want to make this one comment, though. As it relates to the DEI statement, I feel like that's foundational. And I know that we have had a number of conversations around this dais as it relates to what you pursue for the seal. And I hope at some point in time we can revisit that, because I think for anyone to pursue a DEI seal, the fact that you have a statement that's articulated is something that is foundational. And so I would love to revisit that in the future. But thank you for the update.
Sure. I also wanted to share, like this is really echoing. Okay, the application period for the Leadership SEAL program closed, I believe at the end in March. And we're currently evaluating those applications. I just wanted to give an update on some of the stats. We had 71 employers or organizations apply for SEAL status. One in-house counsel, so within a bigger organization, 1 law school, 8 government employers, 29 law firms, 31 nonprofits, and 1 other. So a nice mix of sectors. Our own application was also submitted, of course, and our application is not being reviewed by our own staff. We asked an external committee of folks to review our application. So we really look forward to announcing the results. We'll do a big sort of communications plan and have an outreach strategy when we announce who's achieved SEAL status, what level, put that on our website, et cetera, including ourselves.
Excellent. Mr. Tony.
Thank you, Teresa, for the presentation. And thank you, Leah, for clarifying a couple things, including how the State Bar's own seal will be evaluated. I think it's very good that there's an external committee. It's just very strong protocol to do it that way. Would that committee also, if there were, for instance, applications from organizations that are affiliated with, say, board trustees, for instance, that might be a good idea for that external committee also to do it. I think the principle is sound, and just suggesting there may be other applications to it. If my organization, Turn, ever applied, it would feel more comfortable for me to have someone else, you know, outside of the bar staff itself evaluate it. So, and remind me what we have designated as the levels. I forgot. When I read this, I couldn't find it.
Do you want to say that, Teresa?
I just don't know what they are.
No, I think we do have like a gold, silver, and bronze
Gold,
status.
silver, and bronze.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to make sure that gold was the highest one that the State Bar was applying, and there wasn't a platinum that I'd forgotten about or something. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Anything else?
That is it.
Okay, I see that Morala Rosales has joined us.
Yes. Good
Welcome.
morning. Yes,
Good morning.
good morning. Thank you, Chair Shelby and members of the committee for inviting me to present, give a short overview of the project that the law firm is working with the State Bar on. Let me introduce myself, Mara Rosales from Rosales Law Partners. I don't have my other senior team members with me, but they are Bernita Reagan of Merriweather and Williams and Donna Linton of DR Linton and Associates. And together we are the senior project team. We have other team members, but we've been engaged to provide legal and consulting, diversity, equity, and inclusion services to the State Bar relating to the bar's practices, policies, and programs. Particularly procurement in goods and services, including construction, And that's just the overview. In terms of the actual scope of work, I'm assuming you don't need an in-depth review of that, but we have two phases. The first phase is to assess, first of all, gather from staff, but also assess procurement information, data, not just assess it, but obviously through the process of investigation, research, and interviewing with staff, make recommendations, if you will, or conclusions and findings regarding that data. It's always with a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens, but consistent with whatever constraints apply under either California or federal law, including Proposition 209. That's the overview of the scope. If we can put up the progress report.
I'm sharing my screen. Can you see?
Can you make it bigger, Justin? Maybe we can take off the board members at the bottom to go full screen. Is that possible?
Is
That's
that
better.
Yes. So what we've done here, just to give you kind of a quick overview, almost a cheat sheet approach here in looking at where we are with our work, is that we've identified the major tasks that are set forth in the scope of work, and just our own timeline, obviously within the constraints of the contract, and where we are in each of these steps. As you can see, some of them are near completion. And in one case, there is a completion of that task, of subtask, task 3, assessment of the collected data. But I would say that we are at the midpoint of our data analysis and review. This process requires, it's tedious, and we have to look at your data, we have to categorize it, we have to put it in various buckets or industry codes, look at who is available in your market for the various procurement activities. I apologize. I'm at home and my neighbor has a dog that's barking, if you can hear it. We've also been asked to provide some assistance with your facilities relocation efforts. If you have questions, I'm happy to address them, but that's where we are at this point. I think the next steps that we want to focus on is, after we've gotten a better handle, if you will, of the data and the questions that we have internally, we've been able to kind of resolve for ourselves, if you will, through research, that we'd want to proceed to interviewing staff. And we haven't decided yet which staff we would like to consult with, other than the general counsel and the procurement staff. But we had a meeting earlier this week, the team did, and we anticipated about 4, perhaps 5 interviews of staff, so that we can essentially understand how the State Bar does business, essentially, and answer some questions that we have as we go along. So with that, I should say that after this process is complete, then we, as I mentioned earlier, we would prepare what I call findings and conclusions. That's typically what we do with these kinds of studies, and then based on those findings and recommendations, findings and conclusions, we make recommendations for the bar's consideration. Happy to answer any questions.
I'm wondering, Mara, if you would share with the committee some of the conversations we've had about maybe what you perceive as the significance or potential significance of the State Bar doing this work, because I know that we've talked about the fact that the bar sort of leaning into figuring out how to achieve DEI goals with respect to our procurement, our spend in this area within the constraints of the law may be important and have value, obviously not just for our own organization, but as the legal regulator in the state. And I don't know, I think it would be great for the committee to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Well, we are on the record, and it is a public meeting. So and I am counsel to the state bar, so I'm going to be careful with what I say, but I think just an overarching view. I didn't give a lot of introduction about my own background. Now I'm dating myself, but I graduated in 1982. So I've been practicing law for quite a while. And in that period of time, my career started with the California Supreme Court as a research attorney, and then as a deputy city attorney with the city and county of San Francisco. But in the last 12 years as an airport general counsel and deputy director for regulatory and legislative affairs. But in that, I mentioned that because in that world of public procurement and public law, I was very early privileged, because there really isn't another way of describing it, to be asked to advise the city of San Francisco in with respect to the adoption of the then Minority Women Local Business Utilization Ordinance, which was a landmark decision by the Board of Supervisors in 1985, and essentially it's marked my entire career in this field, and I've seen almost every today we call it diversity, equity, and inclusion. Back in the day, it was affirmative action. In the legal world, it's civil rights and equal protection. But in my entire career, I've represented many, many public agencies up and down the state, but also throughout the country on these issues and these matters and these policies. And so for the legal team, we were excited, to say the least, the prospect of representing the state bar in these matters, because our own experience as lawyers, I think, not just as public sector lawyers, but also, as practitioners, I think we see the need within the profession, certainly, to have a heightened sensitivity, that's putting it mildly, with respect to these issues, not just in the procurement field, which is the field that we're talking about now, but also with the, how law firms, for instance, hire attorneys or the factors they consider when they're hiring other, contractors and so forth. So from my perspective, the legal team's perspective, this is very valuable work. It's again, speaking candidly, kind of surprising that in my 40th year of law practice, I'm having this kind of conversation. But it's never late, right? And better late than never, as they say. And so I just think it's very, very valuable work, and I commend the state bar for undertaking these initiatives. I hope that answers what you had in mind, Leah.
Yeah, sorry for putting you on the spot.
That's okay.
Trustee Noel?
Thank you. Ms. Rosales, you indicated that you were kind of in the middle of slugging through the data collection, but your chart says you're 100% complete as of March on one and 90% on the other. Is that just a mistake?
No, it's because there's like at least 3 different components.
Right.
It's like a puzzle that comes together. So one puzzle is actual quantitative data that has to be reviewed. Other part of it is policy, the policies governing the contracting practices of the bar. And then the more qualitative data process, which is the essentially both anecdotal evidence coming, if you will, or anecdotal information coming from interviews, just to kind of piece the picture together.
Right.
And so that's why I say, you know, it's only when the entire puzzle is together that then it's like, then as a practitioner, you
Yes.
look, right? You look at the total and then you make some conclusions about it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Trustee Chen.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I wanted to ask whether, in looking at the diversity of the State Bar's procurement, whether we are also looking at the banking relationships we have and where we keep our assets. One of the things that my law firm did in recent years is, in looking at diversifying our vendor relationships, is to look at where we keep our money, with an eye in particular to recognizing that historically underserved communities have lacked access to capital, and that has contributed to wealth disparities. And so we have made a conscious effort to diversify our banking relationships and have moved some of our capital to a Black-owned bank. And so I know sometimes when you think about vendors, people don't automatically think of, well, where do we keep our money? So I would encourage us to look at our banking relationships and whether there's a way to diversify them to support banks that support underserved communities.
I second that comment.
Yeah, and that actually is on the Finance Committee work plan in terms of restructuring the investment policy. So with DEI and other goals, equity goals in mind, and I think that is due, I don't know if Araceli's here, if it's the end of this year or sometime in 2024. But I would love to connect, Helen. I think one of the challenges that we're having are achieving those goals, again, within the confines of some of the limitations, at least those that we perceive on how we can invest our money as a government agency. But wonderful idea to engage the Rosales firm on that as well.
And I want to point out that that is part of this organizational audit focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, the investment policy revisions, that is included as part of this audit.
That's great to hear.
Good.
I have a second question or comment, which is, I know that it's elsewhere on our agenda, I believe on the full board agenda, is to receive a report on our outside counsel spend. And so one question I have is whether we are engaged in looking at or asking our outside counsel for their diversity efforts and their diversity metrics, which is something that I know we as a law firm always have to do for many of our clients. And so wondering what the State Bar is doing in that regard.
When I joined, one of the first conversations that Leah and I had was around starting to track some data. And one of our operational goals is to do an outreach to the firms that we're engaged with to understand their practices, their commitments, and definitely plans around moving in direction of more inclusivity. And I've actually started doing some of that work already.
Great, that's great to hear. So I think that, you know, we should set as a goal for ourselves for future reports on outside counsel that also includes some metrics about how those outside counsel are doing on diversity.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Trustee Chen touched on two of the areas that I was going to touch on, so thank you. Ms. Rosales, have spent the last 25 years, not as grand as you, but focused on, I call it economic diversity, because that's what it really comes down to. And so one of the, and I've done it in the corporate sector, but I also know things such as hub zones, because as you begin to get into different governmental areas, there's other ways of tracking economic diversity that don't impact Prop 209, which we have here in California. And I was curious, though, as it related to spend, because people define spend differently. I didn't know categorically if there was any spend that wasn't being evaluated by the State Bar as it relates to this survey. Sometimes people exclude, and so I didn't know if there was an area of exclusion that you all had identified, or if you were focused on spend at a particular level. And so I didn't know if you could articulate that.
Well, right now, all spend is included in the analysis. And so what we're seeing is there's certain categories that I think need to be like the graders, for instance, certain professional services, it's very unique to the state bar. And so not to say to exclude them, but to kind of put them in a separate category for analysis. Possibly the IT procurement functions as well, kind of just understanding, like we're not quite at the point of understanding the entire the market that's available, the folks that are available to provide service that would be tailored to the needs of the state bar. But so we're not excluding anything right now. We're just kind of, if you will, kind of putting it in certain kind of what I call the general procurement categories of, construction, professional services relating to construction or other professional services like real estate consulting, for instance, are all part of what I call more of the traditional procurement buckets, if you will. But we're definitely not excluding anything at this point.
Thank you. And then I also saw a notation at the bottom of the graph that related to subcontracting, which, as you know, and I understand Bernita Regan is on the team, who is very celebrated in this area as it relates to construction and professional services. But subcontracting, I'm really looking forward to seeing what transpires, because oftentimes when you can't capture direct spend or tier one spend, you can certainly capture it with who your larger partners are partnering with and working with and capturing in that data. And that subcontracting information is equally as important to review and to look at as is that tier one business to business relationship. So thank you.
We're definitely taking a look at that. We're going to dig as deep as we can on the subcontracting, because as you say, it's many times that's exactly where the opportunities are.
Absolutely. Anything else on this item? Excellent. Thank you very much. Looking forward to your return to the committee.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marta.
Thank you.
So we are going to move in closed session, but I need to read this in its entirety. We will now discuss business item IA, IT security assessment update. Our intent is to go into closed session to discuss this item pursuant to Government Code 11126C18A, as we will be discussing various matters related to the security of our information technology infrastructure and systems, which, if disclosed publicly, could compromise the security of our systems and the highly confidential electronic data contained in them, including personnel data, data related to applicants for admission, and data related to pending disciplinary cases. To move into closed session for this matter, the Government Code requires a 2/3 vote of the committee members present. May I ask for a motion and a second at this time? Thank you, Mr. Knoll. Second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Broughton. We need to call the roll, Mr. Ewert.
Yes.
One question, please.
Yes.
If I might. I never remember voting to go into closed session before.
This is unique to this particular
Thank you.
closed session item, and
Yes.
it's required by the Bagley-Keene Act.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Mr. Knoll. We have a second by Mr. Broughton. Can you call the roll, please?
Broughton,
Yes.
Chen,
Aye.
Knoll,
Aye.
Shelby,
Aye.
Tony.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, 0 noes. We have the 2/3 requirement met.
Excellent. We will now move into closed session, and we anticipate that it will take between 15 and 30 minutes, after which we will return to open session. Thank you.
Trustee Broughton and Trustee Knoll, you should have received the link to join closed session.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we
I
can hear
said
you.
we're open just for you, Arnie.
Good.
All right, are we ready?
Yes, we are recording.
Okay, thank you, Louisa. We have returned from a closed session discussion about updates from previous IT security assessments. The discussion was closed pursuant to Government Code 11126C 18A. The committee did not take any reportable action during the discussion. We are now adjourned. Thank you.